Good evening. Welcome to QWF's Black Writers Out Loud Spoken Word Edition. I want to begin with a land acknowledgement. The Quebec Writers Federation represents diverse individuals who live and create on traditional territories of many First Peoples. The QWF office is located in Tiohtià:ke, which is what Kanien'kehá:ka call Montreal. This place has and continues to be a historical gathering place for many Indigenous peoples. We're grateful to be part of a long and proud history of creating and sharing stories on these lands. Welcome again. Now we're going to introduce the panelists. So first I want to give some bios on those who are going to be presenting, being a part of this presentation. So first, Fabrice Kofi. Originally from the Ivory Coast, Fabrice Kofi settled in Montreal in 1998 to pursue university studies. This is where his journey of artistic expression begins, as he joins the infamous Community Vibe Collective. In 2006, he meets guitarist Guillaume Soucy. Grounded in a growing complicity, their prolific union breathes life into a series of performances, and the album Poésique is released in 2009 and selected by the Vue sur la Relève Festival and the Montreal Francophonie. In 2016, the album receives the Prix Coup de Cœur Award from Ici Musique. His poetry speaks of life through history where human beings are the center. Fabrice, welcome. Next, we have Rowan Blue River Higgins. From a hyper at-risk youth engaged in the system to an active community change agent, Rowan is committed as an educator, coach, speaker, and event producer. Her community service and creative accomplishments have been recognized by Montreal Community Care Awards, Black Theatre Workshop, and Fond 1804. Dubbed as Blue River, her unique style, flow, and delivery have gained her opportunities to perform in different audiences in different time zones. Her current projects are coaching multi-passionate creatives to get unstuck and tap into their creative potential, and releasing a poetry project this year. Rowan, how are you? Last but not least, Faith Paré. Faith Paré is a poet and performer of Afro-Guyanese and Quebecois ancestries. Her writing is forthcoming in Carnation and has previously appeared in Guts, Osa, and Shameless magazine. Faith is a proud alum of Our Bodies, Our Stories, a creative collective for queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, artists mentored by Kamala Macro. And she recently completed the Quebec Writers Federation's 2020 May Ruth Sarsfield Mentorship for Underrepresented Writers under the guidance of Dr. Jillian Z. She is studying her honors BA in English and creative writing. Hi, Faith. So we're here. I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to get going. A little nervous, but we have a bit of business to get through, and then we're going to get started. So thank you all for being here, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you to those in the audience, and let's get to this. So as you see, there's a chat at the bottom for those watching. It's going to be disabled, and Q&A will be available for all technical problems. And as well, put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to as many as possible later on in the evening. Also, the event's being recorded, so there's going to be follow-up emails with a YouTube link in about 5 days. So let's get to the first question, which is for all of you. You're all performers. To some, the idea of being on stage seems quite daunting. I'd like to know, how do you handle nerves? What are your pre-performance rituals? So whoever wants to go first can go first for this one, and just let me know what your thoughts are.
Okay, I could go, I guess.
Please do.
Please do. So hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Hey, Jason, it's been a while. Good to see you. So Stress, how do I handle? I guess I welcome it. For some reason, when I was starting, I heard that. Anyways, I always related stress and panic to respect, to
Mm,
respect. So I'm just taking it in, and
mm,
it's just a way for me to remind me of what I love, and that I need to be a little bit afraid of
mm,
that thing I love, respect it
mhm,
in a little, yeah, respecting it a little bit, so I can
mm,
remain humble, maybe,
mm,
or something. Anyway, so yeah, so I take it in and I breathe it in and out, and I want to have it. The day I'm gonna step on stage without that being afraid of that little thing, then I guess I'm not gonna go on stage.
mm. Yes, that's when I get afraid, but I'm not afraid. Rowan, any
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. Pre-performance rituals, drinking my water, throat starts to like, right? Vocal cords starts to get all dried out and very tense.
Mm,
Um, I'm usually pacing. The nerves are definitely running high, and I
mm,
try to get myself in the middle. That it's
mm,
not too much stress,
mm,
but that there's enough stress for me to channel it. So I
mm,
honor the anxiety. I honor
mm,
my stomach and heart flutters and my mind racing. And then that's when I pray. And right before I perform, I've learned this over the years, being very hyperactive and very anxious, is grounding my feet.
mm.
And some people are usually just really attentive before I perform, and they're like, "Oh, that was really intense the way you pause." I'm like, that's me grounding myself, but they don't know that. Now you
Mm.
all know, but yeah, just grounding, just really separating my feet. I learned it in an acting class as well. In choir, I just learned to plant my feet, plant those roots.
Thank you. Faith?
Yeah, I really love those. I'm going to take some of your tips, guys, actually. I really love that because my whole thing is I'm like, do I handle stress? Do I handle it? I just kind of get through it, right? But I think the notion really is like your body gets afraid because it thinks it's in danger, first of all. So it's about your mind telling yourself that you're not in danger. And I think there's something also very interesting to know about the places and the spaces that we interpret ourselves as being in danger when we're actually safe, or we can create that as much safety as possible for
Mhm.
ourselves. And I think really just connecting to there's a reason why you're there. When I used to be in the slam circuit when I was a teenager, one of those kind of phrases that people would throw out from the audience would be like, remember why you wrote it. And that really is something that I carry with me, that, it really requires this kind of moment to yourself to remember why you're here, to remember why you stuck with this writing and rehearsing in the first place, that you're not in danger, that this is the place that you sought to be.
All right, thank you. All right, let's get into process. What is your writing process? Where do the poems come from? How does a poem start for you? And how do you know that it's finished?
All that.
I can definitely say it comes from emotion
Mm,
for me. I'm not one that, I guess, being very scattered or having myself in many things, I'm not there thinking and I'm like, oh, this would be a really cool thing to write about. But when I'm triggered,
mhm,
when things just get to me, my heart, because usually I'm a joker and that's how I handle a lot of things. But
mm,
when I write and then I perform, you give me that pen and I'm going in. And I learned the first time I wrote and I performed, I didn't even recognize who I was. The emotion was channeled in such a way that I didn't recognize. So my process is, well, first it's triggered by emotion,
mm,
and then it's usually over beats. And it could be jazz, a lot of jazz, hip hop, gospel hip hop, sometimes jazz gospel. It's usually instrumental beats.
mm,
And I just start to spit fire, grab the phone, hit record, and then as I'm typing it, I start to have a different flow, but with the same energy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I know I'm done? I never know I'm done. Yeah. It's just like, as long as it makes it's getting too long, wrap it up, Rowan. Or, you know, I'm usually typing and I just feel that, okay, you're trying to add things. And I usually I try not to edit except for like just the grammatical errors, because I'm one of those people that will continuously try to comb through it and try to make it perfect it. And as we know, performance poetry, if I'm not reading, you make a mistake and nobody notices. They're like, what? It sounded perfect. I'm like, I totally forgot a big paragraph. Mm-hmm. So I've learned not to try to, like, you know, when you paint and you're just trying to like, oh, well, I got to clean that up. But it's no longer your masterpiece that, you know, that you originally envisioned or that was birthed inside of you. And I really see it as being birthed inside you, that emotion. And there's times when I perform a poem that I did years ago, and if I'm not connected to the emotion, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. So just really honoring where it came from. And during COVID, I didn't have much of a creative writing happening, because I wasn't on demand. Like, people were like, hey, I need you here, because that's what happens. Like, oh my, what's the theme? I used to hate themes when I started with, oh my gosh, Black Theater Workshop, when they had their slams, and I really hated it. Or so I thought. That I realized this inspires me, because on the, you know, you just on cue, they're like, your word is writer. And then it's like, what? But then I'm just like, wow, you can birth pieces like at a drop of a hat. I just need that, you know, I just need that word to inspire me in the moment and just mull over it, you know? So yeah, just visualize, triggered by emotion, and keep the emotion there, no matter how old the piece is. Bring yourself, like Faith said, why did you write it? Remember why you wrote it.
Thank you.
I might have forgotten a couple other questions, but you can let me know.
Okay, you got it. Faith?
Yeah, I think, you know, the kind of writers, like the image that the writer has, I think in culture is one where process is, you know, this very natural power that like overtakes you. And sometimes it's that in those like really awesome, unexplainable moments that can only really be, you know, traced to, you know, well, I consider the ancestors really, but most of the time it can be really annoying and grueling and really like, you know, you're wrangling with the page sometimes. And I think one of the things I really wanted when I was growing up as a writer and I didn't have much of a community was people just kind of saying, yeah, sometimes this is hard, and especially in a world where there are a lot of people with their voices, or, you know, they are trained to rethink and doubt their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own reactions to things. And I think what I've had to really cultivate in my life is being able to trust myself and like do the fall into the page over and over again, even when nothing is coming out. Even, you know, I've sat down for a few hours to write one day and I think it's going to be a super generative process, and I'm like, I got 2 words out and we're just going to call it a night, and that's fine. And just letting that be, because whatever's going on, whether you want to say, you know, it's the subconscious, whether you want to say it's the universe, it's the ancestors, that's all at work at once, that your brain is always taking in these images, these lines. As a poet, and especially as you grow and flex your muscles as a poet, you're also learning to better do the work behind the scenes, even when you're not necessarily staring right at a page, or, you know, trying like freestyling and recording it on your phone, or whatever your process is. So I think it's really become taking those fragments from the world and trusting myself when the time is there to sit down and write.
Fabrice?
Yeah, I guess I forgot all the question you had. So process, I'm gonna go with
this. Where
this.
does the poem come from? When does it start? When does it finish?
Oh gosh. Okay, I just want to quickly apologize for my English. There's things you don't understand or get well, just tell me to repeat them.
Dis-le en
Yeah,
français.
I know. I see you shaking your hands like this. I know what you mean, but I just want to make sure everybody, like, I get myself understood for everybody. I started poetry with desire to run away from a life I had. I was in business. I was supposed to be a banker. And so I went to this life to poetry when I encountered Calamity Vibe Collective. And then my process was emotion, I guess. Whatever images, or it might have been like somebody smiling in the streets, or a child, or a moment. It was just little brief moments that I was trying to express on the page, okay, to put on the page and to see, to reflect on the page. So I was really there. So I had a lot of like little moments. My piece weren't that long. I was trying just to put in, like, yes, on the page, some kind of emotion that had touched me during the day, or with no intention, but for myself. And then I became a poet, whatever that means. And the process became a bit different because audience came in now. So I wasn't only writing for me, but there was other people that heard my pieces from before and liked them. So there was that, okay, now you have to write for other people. And so I went into that zigzag maybe between those two, where I wanted to hold on to the emotion. And then there was that little me inside of me was like, yes, but you're going to say that piece. So what about on stage? How is it going to sound? And I guess being at Community and being like with all those other poets and singers and all those influences really inspired me. Those are the people that really, really inspired me becoming a better poet. And so, and working a piece came in now. Because before becoming a poet, I wasn't working my pieces. Emotion, put the emotion on the paper, that's it, I'm done, I'm good. But then the rewriting and of the piece came up by talking to Jason or to Kai Kello or to, and that became something else. And it just made me like talk to myself more and see what was important for me. Was it the audience? Was it me? And all that to come up to go back to the, yes, to me. And to the point is to express a personal idea to other people. It's good if they like them. If they don't like, it's fine too. But I guess that was the process. And then I met the musicians. So then I realized that words had music behind them, because I was singing a piece and my musician, Guillaume Soucy, was taking his guitar and putting some notes on it. And then my pieces were becoming a bit more complete because there was that other sound aspect to it. And yeah, so that was it. So we're just cooking like this. So writing and meeting him. And I guess what I want to say is my process is always evolving, changing, moving, and I'm not sure how to answer the question. I'm always a bit uncomfortable because I have no idea. But yeah, something touches me and I'm trying to reproduce it. And yeah, in a simple way as possible.
Well, you answered the question and you actually segued into my next question, which is for you. So Fabrice, you, Roman, and myself are all members of Community Live Organic Improv Collective. I have fond memories of your beginnings in Community, observing you grow as a performer. I recall the moment you began to really excel in the improvisational form. What adjustments did you make to get comfortable?
Wow.
Assuming you're comfortable.
Say that again?
Assuming you're comfortable in Community. I think you are.
So no. So no. The short answer is no. Or the last question.
So how did you adjust? How did you get to that point where you know you got this? Like, there's always going to be that level of nervousness, fear, whenever you step on stage, but there's also that level of, you know what, I've been doing this for a while. I know what to do. I'm okay. How did you work it out?
Do we have 2 days? No, sorry. I grew up in the Ivory Coast. I grew up, my parents went to school, did well at school, they had good jobs. They wanted me, their son, to go to school and succeed through school, since that's what they knew. It was like, we did this, it works for us. You know what, son, do it, it's gonna work for you too. I came here, university, And I was sad. As a human being, I was sad. I started having some issue. I didn't understood it then, but I was in conflict with the image they gave me, the image was supposed to be, so that projection. And that me inside of me who didn't know what he wanted to do or be, didn't know he was alive anyways. And what Community did to me is that Community exposed me to a bunch of people who made me realize that you are able to choose your life for what you want to make of your life for yourself. Okay, I was saying poets, bass players, guitarists, drummers, and in my head it was like, you know what, those people, they are doing what they want to do. They're not following what their parents want them to do or society want them to do. That you were supposed to be a banker, you're supposed to be a doctor, you're supposed to be an engineer. Those people are like, you know what, whoa, I love my guitar, I'm going to be a guitarist. Oh, I love singing, you know what, I'm going to be a singer. And it was fine, and they were doing exactly what they thought they would be doing when they were. And that really touches me, and I actually stopped going to school. Okay, I stopped going to school, and I went to, I had like 8 classes to finish, and I was like, you know what, I'm not happy there. I used to write. I was 14 years old, that girl broke my heart. I took a pen and I wrote something. But then poetry or music wasn't able to succeed in my family. You don't, music and dancing and stuff like this, like you don't do this. So I was just doing it for myself. And then I had an opportunity with KVC, like it was life telling me, do you want to do it? Do you want to try it? You have pieces at home. You've been writing for like 10 years, 15 years. Now you have a stage and you have people who's making poetry. You have like a place to say your pieces. Do you want to do it? And I guess I said yes. And then I was exposed to all those people who inspired me. So how I became comfortable, I had no choice. I had no choice. I had no other choice, but I had no other choice. It was either this or being miserable for the rest of my life. And that meant if I had a woman, she would have been miserable. My kids, my dogs, everything would be miserable around me because I would have been miserable. So I chose the X, I chose the unknown, and I had to tell my people and my society, you know what, I'm not going to be a banker. I'm going to do this, and I have no idea if I'm going to succeed or whatever. So I became comfortable. I'm not comfortable, but I became whatever we meant me by comfortable by being there, because I had no other choice of being anywhere else. By being there every Tuesday for like 3, 4, 5 years, I didn't miss any Tuesday. For like the first 3 years for sure, no Tuesday were missed, and even later, I'm sure. So that was it. It was this. So it wasn't. I had no other choice but to be comfortable, but to be there and to try and to be there, and then to eat, because there was food all over the place, inspiration, music, people, and to do this. And poetry became serious to me and a job like 3, 4 years after that. At the beginning, it was just like, you know what, I was just like getting born, I guess. So yeah, so I'm keeping on trying to be comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Faith. You represented Toronto in Brave New Voices competition, which features slam poetry and teams from across the US as well as internationally. I've seen a lot of clips of Brave New Voices. I have the DVD. The competition seems very intense. I love it. I think it's amazing. Tell us about your experience at Brave New Voices, which features young poets, and what was the biggest lesson you learned, and what lasting impact has it had?
You really asked me a huge, awesome, complicated question. You're coming in packed with the questions. I really love it. Brave New Voices.
Yeah.
I think Brave New Voices for me was complicated, life-changing, grounding, disappointing, exciting. Like it really was a turning point, I think, in my life and my sense of myself as, you know, an artist. I think, like Fabrice, it was like being in community, you know, being community is required for someone to start thinking of themselves as perhaps this is, you know, not a distant kind of role, that actually an artist is something that I can be, that I can actually make that a reality for myself. My kind of backstory into getting into Brave New Voices was I've been writing my entire life, but I kind of, when I was 14, I was very sad. It seems like that's a common, you know, like origin story of poets. I stumbled across a Shane Koizen video on YouTube, and I had never encountered spoken word before, and I was just completely mind blown in every single sense. It was like cellular. Cellularly, I was different, and I had realized that, you know, all my experimentations with, you know, fiction, because that's what I thought writers were supposed to write, that poetry was kind of, you know, it died with the Romantics. It was at least 200 years old and no one really cared about it anymore. I thought, you know, contemporary writers were supposed to write fiction. My teachers weren't really getting all the weird things I was trying to do. I was doing theater because I was in an arts high school. And so I was really interested in voice and body and character. And it was like all these things that I absolutely love were melded into one. And I just became absolutely addicted to watching hours and hours of spoken word on YouTube every day. And I would do that for about a year and a half before I actually did anything. And I actually performed myself. I actually participated in Slam. And it was through Brave New Voices clips. And an archive that really exists. Unfortunately, you know, some people become, you know, massive stars, but, you know, there are a lot of poets who you kind of only know their first name, the city that they represented, but they're absolutely phenomenal and they're working as this unit. And to think that their youth is just unbelievable. I was like so enchanted essentially by the collaborative process that was involved, the attention to voice and body, the way that the unit would come together to support solo voices. And in going to Brave New Voices, it was overwhelming. It was really thrilling. I got to have conversations with, you know, poets that I really loved. I did workshops with Danez Smith, who's still one of my biggest idols, and performance inspirations, with Safia El Hilo. And that was all for, you know, I never would have been able, especially in Canada, to be able to be in proximity with them. Usually I got to meet, you know, teens and, you know, young adults from across the continent, across the world. And to really, you know, had this kind of community that we were in DC that year. So it was really a kind of tumultuous time in terms of the upcoming elections. Black Lives Matter, kind of, you know, first waves were still in the air. And it was a moment to kind of come together and reflect on those things, to be in a public forum, essentially, where this was possible. That doesn't happen often. Brave New Voices is a very innovative and unique place. And coming back, I, you know, had a notion of, I don't really want to compete in Slam anymore for very complicated reasons. But what I knew was community was required. Like that was the underlying thing, and everything that I wanted to do when it came to writing, that the kind of myth or image or notion of the solitary writer who takes in the world. You know, we have Emily Dickinson and she did the damn thing, but like there hasn't been many other people who've been able to thrive within that community. And I think particularly in a legacy of Black poetics, community is everything. So I wanted not only to be involved in community in terms of creating, but also in giving back in whatever I was doing.
Thank you. Rowan, as a performer, you're one of the city's best at reading your work with passion, enthusiasm, and humor. But you also often read form by memory. How do you describe the difference in terms of experience and motivation when it comes to reading your work versus performing it by heart?
Oh, wow. Actually, for me, again, believe it or not, it doesn't make a difference. It's how the intention I put towards it. So if I'm reading it, if anything, I might have to put a little effort into slowing it down. However, when I do it from my mind, I'm still fast. Sometimes I'll be like, I really wanted to, I love the poem, but the certain parts I didn't get, you really did it quickly, but I speak quickly. So when I'm reading, I'm able to set the pace a little more, because if I try it mentally, I don't want to forget the words, so I'm going to spit it really fast and I have it the way that I wrote it, right? So that's one of the things that is a little different, but I do make sure I'm intentional of the passion that I deliver it when I'm reading, because I'm mentally reading, I'm a speed reader, so I have to make sure I'm passionate with every line, that it doesn't sound like there's no emotion, right? But that brings me back to the comfort level. When you ask Fabrice, you know, the quote that says, art should comfort the disturbed, right? And disturb those, the comfortable, right? And that's for me, like when I'm writing and that emotion, I'm here to disturb. Like, I'm not comfortable. You're not going to be comfortable. If you're one of the fellow poets on stage or you in the audience, I'm going to shake things up, right? So it's like that passion is, I'm not even thinking of the audience at first. I'm just trying to get this out. That's my therapy. It's a one, like I said before, it's a one thing. I was like, who is this? Because I always thought I was cool with everything. I'm happy. I thought I was an avoider, but no, this is the one place that I honor, like there are the architects who came before me. You know what I mean? The writers who came before me. You pass that pen, I need to write. And I need to, I'm not going to lie, I do need to honor that more, of spending more time in my craft, of studying it, that I can deliver it by memory and not just doing it on the fly because it's just connected to emotion, but really honoring the craft of this oral storytelling and performance, right? So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Fabrice.
Yes.
Watching your poetry video, Quatre Black, I'm reminded and impressed by your calm, your buoyancy, and your relaxation. Knowing that you are a practitioner of capoeira, I wonder if it has informed your performance style. How was poetry dance? How was poetry combat?
Man, you, what? Lovely. First of all, I love what Ron said at the end about performing being a therapy. I loved it, and becoming, and when you perform, it's true. You there's ears there that are gonna listen to your piece, but there's that moment between the stress to come up stage and you performing, where you actually become the piece. I guess reading it or saying it, and that part is really for yourself, about yourself. It's really about you. It's a piece. It's something is happening to you, through you, by you, and the people are there to testify to it, like to, but yeah, but they're not. Yeah, so I like that part. I really like that part. Okay. My heart is divided in two. I'm probably going to ask you to repeat the question again, but I'm thinking about this now. So my heart is divided in two. One part is poetry, whatever that means, and the other part is capoeira. You cannot ask me to choose to only do poetry for the rest of my life. I'll be sad. And you cannot ask me to do capoeira for the rest of my life. I will be sad. I need both. I need both. I need to say the words to embody the piece and to become the piece, because there's a part of me that actually desire to become the man I spit in my pieces. Like that character on stage, there's really a part of me, Fabrice Kofi, who wants to become that man. It's like, okay, that's my ideal. That's, okay, him, I want to be him. I'm only him when I'm on stage, and then I'm him and not him when I'm all over. But that idea of me, yes, it's there. And then, man, capoeira movement. I started capoeira because I saw a class. I had a date, and my date had a class. So we went to a capoeira class. And when I was introduced to capoeira, it kind of brought me back to my childhood, because I was seeing people playing, doing cartwheel and that connection with my childhood was really important to me, because sports, in my personal life, sports was really important. And when I came to Montreal, I couldn't do my sport the way I was doing in the Ivory Coast anymore. So I connected to this, and then to the history that was in it. So there is poetry. Poetry is creation, right? So poetry is not only in a book, in a library. Poetry is alive. Poetry is the sun coming up, going down, is a car, is a smile, is a kid. Poetry is really something alive. It's creation. And there's that creation in capoeira. There's that. Capoeira is the art of taking something from a very bad place, slavery, and everything that was with it, and doing something beautiful with it. Something beautiful, something that will actually teach a lesson, and something that is made for everybody. One of the mestres in capoeira was Mestre Pastinha, and this guy was a poet. He was actually writing poetry. So his approach to capoeira was really poetic. His drawings in the pieces, and there's singing in capoeira. There's improvisation in capoeira. So it's really close to poetry. So when I got introduced to capoeira, first of all, it was the movement, the playing. And then I got into the history and the philosophy and everything with capoeira. And everything was related to poetry to me. The physical, of course, but then you sing. So you remember the past, and you sing the present, and then the music. And all together, it brings the philosophy of capoeira. And for some people, it's a way of life. They are capoeirista. They wake up in the morning, it's capoeira, I go back to capoeira. And to me, with capoeira, it's a bit, so that's the poetry I find in capoeira. I need all the dances, but since I'm doing capoeira, that's the poetry I'm finding in capoeira. It's about resistance. And there's always that resisting, because capoeira is a conversation. I talk to you with my body, we play together, and the point is to make you look good. So it looks like a fight. And yes, I'm still trying to be better than you, for sure. But I need to do it making you look good. And you need to play making me look good. So that's the beauty in capoeira. It's not about hitting and kicking, because everybody can do it. But it's about making it a beautiful place. And the resistance is between my thought and the pen when I want to write a piece, if I need to start by writing it. So there's that duality too. I need to accept the emptiness of the page, and I need to accept that, and I need to try to manage to put my ideas on the page. So yeah, basically that's what I want to say about that.
Thank you. Sounds a lot like community, capoeira.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is a community.
Thank you. Faith, you have been mentored by both Dr. Jillian Z as part of QWF's Mayruth Sarsfield mentorship program, and Kamala Mackerel as part of Our Bodies, Our Stories Collective. Having been through those experiences with such impressive artists, why is mentorship important in your view? How has it shaped your trajectory as an artist and your relationship to Montreal as a writer?
That's an awesome question. And I think being also informed by, my father being born here, but me not growing up here. I grew up in Toronto, and I came here for creative writing school. So another kind of mentorship. It really was in particularly Our Bodies, Our Stories, which was the first kind of arts program that I did extracurricularly when I got to Montreal, that transformed my place and my feeling of place in the city, and my feeling of being tapped into a network of artists. I think I left Toronto because I was looking for a new kind of network. I felt really run down already, and I, wasn't even out of, barely out of my teens yet, by the pace of, the Toronto arts community, the intense pressure for success often, just because the city within itself is run by industry. I think a lot of people who move from Toronto are very shocked by the subtle ways that Montreal has a different air about it, even when it comes to daily living, but also particularly to the creation of art. And I was in creative writing school, and which I still am, and I had an amazing workshop with Professor Stephanie Bolster, who will always be a huge mentor of mine. But I also felt that the university was also very constricting, and because I was coming from a spoken word background as well, and an interest in legacies of Black poetics and the orality of it, the necessity of orality in a lot of Black poetics. Some people just didn't get that. And while that's okay, we can all, have our different tastes, we're all fine with that. There's also, the issues that we're all aware of the ways that Black writers are very, even slowly and subtly started pushed out because there are notions that certain styles or vernacular isn't welcome. I certainly was not interested in going anywhere, but I definitely was interested in finding people that I could really feel like I could create something new that felt, outside of, the constrictions that I felt placed around me. And through OBOS and through Comma, I had always really admired their really just embodied style, their way of, weaving whole histories into, a 5 or 10 minute work, how theatrical the pieces that they write are, but also how intimate they can be as well. I was like, as soon as I saw the application go up, I was like, I have to be a part of this. I have to. And I think the real strength of Our Bodies, Our Stories as well was the ways that, there's spoken word artists, there were dancers, there were people who were interested in going to arts admin, there were musicians, that were all coming from different backgrounds and different flirtations, what we were interested in. And because of that, I was able to, get so much more insight into how to involve movement into my work, how to think through, my love of music, but my, veering away from thinking about music and my poetry being integrated within each other, to think about space in ways that, the actors could, and I was still, trying to figure out being between having done theater and deciding that I wanted to be a writer. So creating that community and being involved in that ongoing community still to this day, even though OBOS is retired in a way, is still so important for me. And then to work with Jillian as well, the May Ruth Sarsfield's mentorship. I'm getting emotional because it was so important for me, but Jillian is just, she not only has really challenged and pushed what I think my writing on the page is capable of, but also in terms of who I'd like to be as, one day, not only being a writer, but being someone who would like to be involved with emerging writers as well. But I think mentorship has been the way that poetry communities have sustained themselves forever, and it's integral. And I think when we are taught by fantastic teachers in writing and performing, we should also be looking at how they teach us as well.
Thank you. Rowan.
Yes, yes.
I watched your feature on Cityline Montreal regarding Black Lives Matter. We can see you're deeply invested and connected to your community. That being said, what are the issues that affect the Montreal Black community, most specifically, that keep coming back in your writing? The things you wish you didn't have to write about, but you feel called to as you live your life in this city.
Yeah, that was a woo. That was a yes. Okay. Thank you, Jason. Wow, I feel like writing a piece right now. That just brought up a lot of. So first, as an educator, also as well, you guys heard in the bio, but coming from the foster care system, going to schools and ended up working at those same schools and walking into group homes where being connected to institutions that I worked for, but I was a part of as a, child of the state, if you will, being told that you won't make it, and the labels that are given to children, yes, of all backgrounds and all culture, but especially that we are targeted in the Black community. Children are labeled much quicker. We are boxed in, being told, oh, they must have ADHD. And I remind teachers, educators all the time, you cannot diagnose a child. And then you see there's special needs or certain concerns in other cultures. Oh, well, the parents are going through a divorce and they won't flag it. So consistently, and we see the percentages there now, the stats are there to match it. Like, these kids that are being targeted and flagged are children from Black families. Then we have police brutality. I have my kids who, and not just Black, but my brown students who will call me and reach out and says, police stopped me, or they beat us up at the basketball court. They took our phones and smashed it. Like, these are things that people don't know happen in Montreal continuously, whether our little kids to our elderly. And we've sat around round tables with our police and tried to assist in trainings, and we're still here. And yeah, I think the emotion tried to roll me from the question, but how does community, can you bring that back to me? Can you bring that question back to me, please, Jason?
What are the things that you don't want to write about,
And I have to keep coming up in the work?
You keep coming up. The things you can't run away from. You know, there's certain poems that I don't want to write them, but they write themselves. Because, for instance, I wrote a piece about Ferguson. That wasn't my plan. I wrote a whole bunch of like different pieces about different things, and things like, you know, Ferguson or Philando Castile kept coming up in the other pieces. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take the parts relating to Black Lives Matter and make it into one piece, and that's where the piece came from, because it just kept coming up. I just kept being triggered by what was happening, and I'm like, you know what? The other parts of what was there in those pieces was not as relevant, not as pertinent, you know? But then to perform that piece, it takes a lot out of me. And I don't always want to do it. I don't do it often. Do it when it's necessary. And I think part of me is run from writing pieces like that, because you, as we've said, you relive these things when you do these kind of poems. And I also understand I have an obligation to do those pieces, because I know we have to say something. Part of our role as artists in this community, Black or otherwise, to address these issues and process it and heal each other. We have to do it.
Well, I think of it like, you know, when I look at the Harlem Renaissance and why they did what they did as Black poets, but made sure that they were authentic in their work and shifted that discipline to create that paradigm against racism, you know, and we're still here. So it's the same thing of when I wrote a piece 10 years ago, and it was, I love Marvel, I'm a comic fan, and I was writing using the names of different antagonists, protagonists, and speaking of us as we are mutants, and how we help this society evolve, and what we do and how we contribute, but then we always have to be running from the beast, you know, and how Captain America influences us even as Canadians. Like, so I use these different names, and how the storm is continuous in us, and it just comes up in every piece. Like you said, we don't know sometimes, we don't recognize it, then you're like, it doesn't even sound familiar because it's different, but the emotion is the same. The rage that comes in me. I've written a piece from a perspective, I am a mother of a 17-year-old. One of my pieces were like, thank God I never gave birth to a Black boy. Just to like make the audience uncomfortable, just to think of that, oh my God, please don't let me have a boy, which was not the case for me. You know, I just wanted to make sure I had a healthy child. But imagine a parent being nervous or saying, I hope my child has lighter skin. Oh my goodness, well, your child's too dark. Honey, take off that hoodie. I don't want you leaving the house looking like that. You know what's gonna happen. And the sermon that we have to give to our kids before they walk out every day. So these are the kind of pieces I write, and I definitely wish I did not have to. And if I did, it was about the past tense and not about the present and possibly the future. You know, and that's a frustration that to the point that I feel that there's no hope in our justice system. And I work, and I'm trying to motivate and empower young Black individuals, humans, that being Black, you can be safe. I feel like that you can make it. And then sometimes I'm like, can we make it? I don't know. Like, that's what 2020 did to me. Like, I just felt so overwhelmed. Like, have we gotten anywhere? Have we progressed? Are we safe? And that's where I'd say that poetry has been my therapy. At the same time, I had to pull back. I don't watch news, but of course I see headlines, but I had to really unplug for my sanity, because even poetry couldn't save me at this point. I just had to separate myself. So performance poetry, and I'm specifying that, spoken word poetry, not just the written form, but my body, you know, having to feel what a mother might feel with her having a Black son, or a young Black man who was to walk in the street. I live it. So sometimes I don't know if I'm even reliving a trauma of someone else. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, experiencing things that I'm only imagining, like Fabrice said, like, you're envisioning it. And sometimes it's a small snippet of something, like Philando Castle. Like, you just imagine, what if I was a mother or the sister or an onlooker or a witness? And I'll close with this. One of the things that frustrated me, and I wrote a piece called I'm a Witness from this moment, was after George Floyd happened, seeing so many people just saying how we need to react. And that upset me. And whether you are Black or white, to tell people, if you're not saying anything, you're off my timeline. As Black people, if you're silent, you don't know what my silence means. And maybe I may not be vocal on social media, but I may be cultivating a poem, or I may be depressed, or I may be catatonic because I can't even process what's happening, or I'm ignoring it because I'm so traumatized and I'm seeing this so much that I'm desensitized. So I think it's definitely good to have a dialogue, but we all have our own way of processing. And I think that's the beauty of being artists and being creatives, is creating an outlet, that's authentic to us, because we perceive the same situation differently and we will deliver it differently. So that's my answer.
Thank you. All right, for Fabrice and Faith, I want to open up the question. In light of COVID-19 and current racial tensions that we're already talking about, especially lack of injustice, Breonna Taylor, as you see what's happening now, or rather what's not happening now, what are the inescapable issues, topics, concerns that you're writing about?
You want to go first?
Making me go first.
You don't have to. It's a question. You don't have to.
No, I can go. Okay. I think as a Black person who's alive in the 21st century, you know, everything that I touch in my creative work is always going to be informed by Blackness. And for me, what I'm very, you know, committed to right now is also in that, you know, what I touch, what's creative, you know, being informed by Blackness, to also communicate my unconditional commitment to Blackness, and to the protection of Blackness, and to honoring that heritage, and to honoring that pain. I really felt moved by Rowan's answer in terms of, you know, thinking about, you know, notions of how do we respond? How are we expected to respond, you know, in or amongst groups of our peers? What is considered a legitimate response? And I think one thing that I've been really wrangling with is, what is poetry really supposed to do? Especially when we have such a split between, you know, the idea of the poet being the outside observer, you know, the solitary, you know, brilliant mind that kind of gazes upon the world but is not part of it. When, you know, that's not the tradition that I'm part of. And the poets that I've loved the most and I've been informed by the most, I'm thinking about, you know, scholars and activists who are also poets, Edmore Bassey Phillip, Dion Brand, Nikki Giovanni, Claire Harris, all, you know, Amiri Baraka, all the greats in terms of Black poetry on this continent have all been informed by their commitment to how poetics and how community organizing and how theorizing Black histories and Black futures all are engaged within each other, that they rely on each other. This is, you know, an ecosystem, that they're not separated. And I think one of the things that's really important for me right now is understanding when poetry isn't enough, you know, to be okay with when writing this poem, especially, you know, when I was a teen in the slam circuit, there was always this idea of, you know, we got to get the poem out about this, you know, this thing that you're feeling a lot of agony over in the news cycle, or, you know, that's really on your mind. And that can be incredibly powerful and can be therapeutic for some people, but also sharing that whether that be that hurt, that confusion in a public forum when you're not ready, when you just feel like this is not the space for it, that this can manifest in a different creative work, or not at all, just in a conversation with people that you love, can also be incredibly triggering and hurtful. We also have to think about the ways that the spectacles of Black trauma and the spectacles of Black pain, and how that's even reinforced in our cultural industry. That's critical to understand, especially for non-Black people who are inviting Black people into their spaces and asking them to speak on their lives and their stories, to make sure that when we're in community that we can also take care of ourselves. So understanding when poetry doesn't feel like enough at the moment, that sometimes you just need to go for a walk. Sometimes you need to call up, someone that you love and be like, I just need to chat, or be reminded that, you're there. Sometimes it's watching a TV show and trying to forget about the world. Sometimes that's going to a march. Sometimes that's, writing a treatise. Sometimes that is writing a poem, and that's all fine and that's all good. But the poem is just one aspect and part of your existence. And it's only one aspect and part of my existence, and it feeds into who I am, but it's not the be all end all. And we can use poetry as our vehicle to creating a future, but we can also have many, many, many other vehicles as well.
Thank you. Fabrice?
Yeah.
Concerns right now, what you're writing about relating to where we are in this world right now?
Man, it's a therapy tonight. Thank you, Justin.
Welcome.
When something happens, whatever in poetry, my process is slow, usually really, really slow. So before it was the emotion, blank, blank, but now I take it's an idea. So I take the idea and I'm trying to explain the idea to myself. And if I'm good with explanation, then maybe I'm going to say the piece and make it nice so other people can hear it. COVID came up, and COVID was actually able to do to the planet what we all wished, or what we were all wishing, but couldn't do. Working from home, stopping the war here. I mean, it was not always positive, of course. Nature was blooming here, and it was bad thing stuff. I mean, violence towards women, and sure. And then, so we all went inside a little bit, and we always heard that sentence, the solution is inside. The answer is in the inside. You have to go inside. Well, there we go. COVID did that for us. Good or bad, I'm not saying anything. There was a lot of bad thing with it, but COVID still made us go inside, whether we wanted it or not. And in that thing, we were all obliged to talk to ourselves and realize that our truth, I don't know if we realized it, but I think we are realizing it, that what I believe is not what my neighbors believe. We might be confronted to the same. What COVID did, it was like some aliens coming to Earth and saying, you know what, I'm against you, I'm going to kill you all. And human beings went, oh, well, we have to come together, the entire planet, with the whole movement coming together, and we have to fight that virus. And we like doing this. And my point here is like, we're living in a world where people love to judge things and to judge them in terms of good and bad. This is good here, and this is bad. Or I am good and he's bad. Because if I'm good, if I'm the good guy, then he's the bad guy. And then we're making camps of good guys. And there's those good guys here, they're pointing their fingers to those people there. They have to be the bad guys. And then you go into the shoes of the bad guys. And then you realize that, wow, it's not that black and white. And then they're pointing their fingers to another group. And they're like, you know what, they're the problem. So if they're the problem, then we're the good guys. Okay, and I don't think the point is to be right or wrong, because everybody's right. From where you stand, you are right. And I think COVID is just bringing us all to our point of view, to our corner of the whatever it is. So there's a situation, and then we're all looking at the same situation, and we all wish that people around us think the same. Some do, some don't, and this is we we wishes for change, unity. I think the only thing we haven't registered yet is that if we want unity, it doesn't mean we have to get rid of the bad or the wrong of the dark. Like the darkness is part of the unity. Good and bad are part of the same. So, and right now I think we're just shooting at each other, making camps, and behind the camp, and then we're just shooting red bullets to the others because we want to eliminate the others because they are the evil. So we need to eliminate them. So and I think, and with those George Floyd and all the things that came up like in our faces because the world was so quiet that nobody could run away from it, no matter where you were, because it was so there. We actually, when we asked for the change came up in a horrible way, but the change came up. And now we're able to do something. We just have to be aware that in that something, if it's unity we want, unity is really unity, and everything is part of unity. So really, so we, it's not the time to divide ourselves. We need to come together. And if Black people have to come together, they really have to come together into all aspects of life, and not only because we are confronted to something tragic. So that's what I think about that. For so long, I mean, Brianna and George, those things are showing us the sommet, like the summit of that white power over Blackness. Simply, and this is like back to slavery and even before, like the first people who came, it's simple. The first religious people that came to Africa, to our countries long ago, or the first explorators, they came, they saw things, they saw the Black man, and they came back to the country. When they went back to the country, to Europe, they had those stories about us. And they had to exaggerate the stories, and they had to make up that image of that man they saw there. People got afraid of that man. And today in 2020, we're still confronted to the same image. People are afraid of the Black man because of that antique idea of the Black man that the first white people that came to Africa brought back. It never changes. And then with those movies after, and that famous American movie, The Making of America, or whatever. I mean, exactly. So those images, and we, for some reason, 2020, 21st century, we're still fighting that image. People are still afraid of a Black kid. He's 15 years old and he's working with a bunch of friends, and people are walking and you see them, and because the energy we have of the whatever, that's it. The people are afraid. And I really cannot understand this, and my pen cannot cry right now. There's nothing I can, I'm not writing right now. I'm not writing because I don't get it. Because I don't get it. So I wrote something about COVID and about everything I'm sharing with you. And I'm getting a bit emotional here. But it's not to share. It's not to share because it's something the past. I can't comprehend it. I can't comprehend how come after so long and after all we know of the Black men and women like influence and apport, like what they brought to history, because they're not parallel. Our history is not parallel to history. We are part of that history. It starts there. So I don't understand how come after all days, a part of humanity still look at us with I mean, anyways, yeah. So I'm not writing right now. I'm not writing. I'm not writing, and I'm not sharing my thoughts necessarily because those camps are there already. People are shooting at each other. It's happening right now. It's gonna go in one direction or the other. We just need to make sure that if we want unity, it's the yin and the yang. We cannot get rid of the yin, be with the yang and say this is now we're good. Or get rid of the yang and say we need the yin and the yin is good. We really need to take both. We really need to take both because this is unity, and it's not always going to be comfortable. It is going to be uncomfortable and comfortable, And I think that's what life is, comfortable and uncomfortable. It's not always daylight. It's not always nighttime. We need both. So I think with the unity we want to create right now in the world, that we want to go, we just need to keep in mind that we live in a duality, and duality is what unity is made of.
Thank you.
We need that community.
Yeah.
Yo, yeah.
We do. Thank you for the plug. Thank you. One day, we have an audience question, so I want to get to it. A spoken word artist, could you reflect on the relationship between performance and the printed page? Where do you go first? When does it move from one to the other? Does it need to work on the page first, etc.?
Okay, I think I'm just gonna keep on since I had the experience of working with a publisher. Is it publisher, editor?
Yeah.
Okay, and my head wasn't really into the work during that period because I was also going to Brazil for capoeira. But what I want to say is that I think when I read my poetry book now, I only see half of myself. Okay, only see half of myself in on the page. I don't really recognize me, but that's also because I didn't put the entire me maybe at the beginning of the process. Okay, so to me it's another me. It's different. There's more work. There's more. You have to be more careful to this and that. And I really feel myself when I'm saying my pieces. When I'm saying my pieces, when I'm on stage, when I'm making the page, when I'm making the page alive, it's really where I really appreciate me more than on a page. It's just different. It's just different. Different means, and personally, I might not speak pieces that I'm gonna write. I might do sometimes, but sometimes I'm just gonna do a piece and like, okay, this is for the paper. Just because of the way it is, and then maybe this other one, okay, this I can say it. So yeah, so I see a little bit of the difference, and I don't quite recognize myself on the page. I feel more complete when I'm on stage.
I'd say the same. I know I get a lot of some people here in the audience are like, "Where's your book?" And it's not to say that I write it. My poetry is birthed in the heart, the mind. Like yes, all of our writing is birthed in the heart and mind, but it's like I have to give birth to it from here orally. But I'll write it that I can retain it. It's very rare that I just write first, and if I'm writing it, it's just I'm going to forget because now I'm just bubbling with emotion. And yeah, some people are very good at just memorizing. Like you see some rappers that are spitting freestyling, and then they can memorize the same freestyle, verbatim. And it's amazing. But the pen is more for me to pin the memory, if you will. Yeah. So to me, and just speaking from being around many spoken word artists and even poets who just write and are asked to deliver, some of them will say sometimes it happens interchangeably, like you just don't know how it's going to come. So what I've learned is just to trust the process, because it seems to be something I used to be like, I just wish I could just write in a way that is just so rich, and no, my delivery is more richer than maybe my writing, right? So.
It is what it is. It is, and it will come when it comes. And I'll wait for the book. Whenever it comes, I want my copy. An album. Everybody has a different thing. So I look at Fabrice. You have a book. You have an album. I have books. I don't have an album, and I'm okay with that. I know what's coming next. I know where I'm going. But everybody does their thing, Rowan. So you do so much. Whenever you feel.
That's right. And we never know the opportunities that can come as well. Sometimes the opportunities birth an end product, or a baby, which can be the album, a video, a book, whatever that might be.
Thank you. Faith?
Yeah, I think the poem really decides where it wants to live. And I think that answers, or where it wants to live is often a complicated place. I was like thinking through, recently I was revisiting some Edna C. Phillip essays, and she has one where she talks about, this notion of, she tries to articulate, being a Black writer in what we call the West, particularly in Canada. And she talks about, the feeling of split between the traditions of, the kind of British colonial education system, the very early education experiences of, a poem looks like this. Sonnet has 14 lines. It has a full at a certain point that, she describes this kind of figure that encapsulates it as something like John of Sussex or something. He has like a kind of frilly, collar, Elizabethan kind of pants, and she also describes, the other side of that split being a character who is, that kind of encapsulates, the African oral tradition that obviously Afro-diasporic poetry encapsulates many, many planes that includes textual, but especially from, an Afro-Caribbean heritage that, living in sound and orality, that's the plane of existence, the griot tradition from Africa, and she describes that feeling of split. And I thought that was such an interesting way as well of articulating my own experience of, being in, like, for example, creative writing institutions, and, we'll say lovely things like, we love spoken word, etc. And I do believe a lot of people believe that. But there's also very decisive ways what a poem should look like. Particularly, it has to live on a white page. How a poem's supposed to be engaged with. How a poem's supposed to be revised and built on, and how a poem comes into existence that doesn't always match the ways that I hear the voice in my head. I feel the sense of beat. I feel the sense of turn of voice. I feel movement in a way that I am not interested in trying to, just translate that to a page or be, fine with it kind of, not capturing that element. I'm very invested in trying to find, the ways that we can translate breath, movement, shift of voice, dance onto the terrain of the page. And sometimes that means lifting it up. That sometimes means making a different kind of weird book project. That sometimes means making a play or a show. Like, for example, my mentor Kamala Mackerel has a book that just came out, but they are also doing a full-length spoken word show based on the poems in that book, or rather in conversation with them. So I think in the Afro-diasporic tradition, we're so creative that, music and dance and the page, just all those being in boxes are not enough for us, that we go, I want a little something more. I want to play with that. I want to remix that. That we're always inventing, new public notions of poetics. And that's, the kind of space that I'm interested in, innovating between the voice and the page, but there has to be something that connects them.
Okay. Thank you. We have about 15 minutes left. We have an audience question, and then I have one more question I want to squeeze in, time permitting. So the audience question is, I've been hearing a lot about being desensitized because of so much trauma and anti-Black violence. I'm wondering if there are ways, rituals, self-care, compassion practices to get in touch with your core self again, especially when you are trying to write from the heart. And also, thank you for your knowledge and presence, from the person who wrote it, who is, I can't see right now. Oh.
Can you repeat the question?
I will, yes.
Please.
I've been hearing a lot about being desensitized because of so much trauma and anti-Blackness. I'm wondering if there are ways, rituals, self-care, compassion practices to get in touch with your core self again, especially when you were trying to write from the heart.
Wow, lovely.
Yeah,
Nice. Thank you.
I know Faith had mentioned, walking, and during civil unrest, the imagery that we've been seeing and COVID. Well, let me just start with with even COVID, of what we learned, right, was the importance of mental health, the importance of doing the work when you're seeing chaos or there's impending doom, because that's what we were made to feel, or that we felt organically, I don't know. But to pause and say, I will be okay. So me was walking into nature, affirmations and declarations, and declaring in my life that I'm not here to fear. That is what the purpose of the media. That is the purpose of certain levels of government, or whatever, or news, whatever you want to call it. I am not here to fear, and that is my spiritual beliefs as well. But it's so easy as humans to go back to that. We feel it naturally, and that's our response system, but we tend to live in that. And we saw what it had done to so many people, so many individuals, their mental health. How many people took their lives during COVID because they weren't used to being alone. And I make the joke of community, but Faith mentioned the importance of community. But when you saw, back to the Harlem Renaissance, or any movement or any tribe or any the griots, oral traditions, it cannot exist without that circle, without that community. Just a capoeira, it's not by itself. The dance has to be done together, right? There's that marriage. And I enjoyed the beginning of the pandemic, in the sense of like, I got to unplug. I didn't have to choose what I'm going to do and say, should I do this? Or let me look at my calendar. I had no calendar. Now, what is your excuse? So for me, compassion, it's so important. I always knew that, but I didn't give myself time to be compassionate to myself. I'm an educator, I'm a counselor. That is what I do for others, but now for me. And not just in the morning for, gratitude and being, no, every moment of the day, planting my feet and being where I am. And that's one of my affirmations, like, be where your feet are. And not, into my schedule, into my agenda, like chuck it all. Now, what really matters? Now, the time that I put myself into these jobs or projects, do I really want to do that anymore? What really matters? All the distractions that we get caught up into, now those things did not matter. Like somebody said, the nature, we saw things blooming, and water is more crystal blue than we've ever seen in our lifetime. And I was like, how will I make an impact and a legacy? So now when I look at my art, we're about, let's say, second wave. I don't think the first wave ever ended, but let's just say second wave is coming, right? And this happens again. How would I respond differently, right? And that is the importance of self-care to me. And I will even go further to say well-being, because self-care, unfortunately, is being so overly used in a way that's making people think it's related to luxury or it's pampering. But self-care is a good word, guys. I'm just saying well-being in a holistic sense. How are we taking care of ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically? And that's what poetry does for me. I include all aspects, and I didn't even make that connection until the pandemic, right? That we hold or release. And poetry, whether we're writing or performing it or dance, whatever that creative source might be, that creative outlet, is releasing it, letting go, not holding on. And just for anybody who's here on watching this right now, I'll say that you may not recognize the difference between depression and anxiety. Yes, it can coexist. But when a lot of us are focusing on the past, I wish, a lot of people during COVID, I wish I can get back to that. And some of us are like, what's going to happen? We're worrying about the future. Let us try to learn to be present. And when we're grounded, we'll think of others who might need us. Take care of you first. Put the oxygen mask on our faces first. But be present in, how can I make a difference? And to me, that's creativity, because creativity is what? Looking at a problem and providing a solution. That's what creativity is. So, yeah.
Thank you. We are going to be performing, the four of us, October 18th, for Words and Music, broadcast from Casa del Popolo. And you may not perform it that night, but could each of you share your favorite line from one of your poems and explain why you chose it? Whoever wants to go first. We have time is kind of running right now, but I really wanted to get that in. And then if we have time, there's one more audience question, and then we'll wrap up. Give us a line that you appreciate of your own work, if you could.
Okay, let me go. Le quartier demeure loin des projecteurs. À moins d'une émeute, le monde est croche, j'ai peur. Émeute qui aura suivi une bavure policière. Pour eux, un gang de rue. Pour nous, un proche, j'ai peur. So it's part of Serge, and it's basically a part saying that I live in a neighborhood away from all the lights and the projectors. Unless there's some kind of issues, some kind of riots, then police come into my neighborhood and running after our people and hurting somebody. For them, it's a member of a gang, but for us, it's a family member. So again, so yeah, so they see us as bad, whatever thing, but we're family. I mean, to us, it's brothers, sisters, uncle, nephew, and stuff like this. So human. That's why.
Thank you. Rowan?
So I'll do a line from Peace, I'm a Witness. And it starts with just speaking about being a witness to another Black man saying, I can't breathe, and his last breath being stolen by a person who's supposed to serve and protect.
Yeah.
Shouting for his mama while an officer forcefully kneels in his neck, his hands shackled in chrome steel bracelets while a passerby shouts out that he's in medical distress. Instead of an arrest, they laid this man to rest, forging another story that he was resisting arrest. I am a witness of strange fruit being crushed against concrete, freshly pressed by the knees of an officer of peace, the juice of human life pouring out of its vessel, trying to find its soul in the streets. Sweet to the one who just picked another nigga from the tree of life, bitter to us who still has to fight this fight.
Lovely.
Thank you. Faith?
I've been working on lengthening this piece that I presented last month. I'm part of a very new collective with two really amazing Concordia Creative Writing grads, Meredith Murray-Dugas and Paige Kelleher, called Volta Collective. We did a show that was a fundraiser for currently and recently incarcerated Black folks across Canada. And it was all based on Afrofuturisms and Black futures, which kind of ties into that last question that, you know, Afrofuturism, whether that be music or text, has been a very healing thing for me. And I've been working on this piece about a Black woman who survives at the end of the world, and there's no one from humanity left except a sea monster created by all the oil that we dumped in the oceans. And they're allies, and I've been working on expanding this piece, so it's very important to me. There are some lines that I really love. There's three. There is no work, no war, no Saturday night football, no supermarket, no rape, no time, no law, except with what nature bestowed you for the first time in 12,000 years. For the first time in your entire life, you slept warm. No history, only water, coral, algae, frog, swamp, leech, mud, no future, nothing to be dragged toward or dread, flee from, fight over. What was to come, always steady and present like a horizon, different from what you were promised, but shockingly clear, without the iron heaps of junk they once called skylines littering it from view.
Nice.
Well. We have one other question from the audience that I'm gonna just put it out there. If we could answer briefly, and then we're gonna wrap up.
Okay.
From Kim Zombik. The other question before was from Shin Ling Lo, and the first question was from Kevin Victor. So Kim Zombik is asking, well, first of all, she says, hello all, thanks so much for your sharing, very inspiring.
Hello.
What is your embodied sense, your felt sense of being authentic in your work? What is the literal sensation of being true to what wants to be expressed, your thoughts? Thanks. I'm going to read it again.
That's deep.
Please,
it's a
please
deep
do.
one. I feel like it's almost as if
Oh my God.
that question is our final statement for us to all think about and be our homework for the next week. So I'll read it again. What is your embodied sense, your felt sense of being authentic in your work? What is the literal sensation of being true to what wants to be expressed through you?
Wow.
I think Kim is a poet, and she's just not.
Yes, that's actually a poem. Thank you.
That's a poem.
So,
oh, go ahead, Fabrice.
No, it's okay, go.
Yeah, just hearing this question, I feel like the embodied sense. How do I know the literal sensation?
What is the sensation of being true to what one wants, what you want to express? How does it feel? I guess that's what she's asking.
Yeah, so for me, because most of my pieces are a reaction to what I'm seeing, and usually it's something that may have disturbed me or caught me off guard, the sensation is heat, you know, like, and everything starts like, you know, in the gut or the womb for me. And it's like right there, and it comes into my chest. And sometimes there is that tightness in my chest. And until I express it, it will stay there. I know it's authentic because one of the beautiful things, I hear some American poets complain about it, but one of the things I honor in Montreal, I could only speak for our city, is that no poet is trying to sound like the other and trying to bite each other's style, right? So yeah, so I honor that, and that's how I know my voice is authentic. So if you're that person that's I see this green bottle and I say, oh my gosh, the sea foam and foaming in my hair like shampoo, and another person be like, I spit this and I'm going to drink this bottle. It's like, that's you. And that's authentically you. Your delivery is you. The words are you, because it's coming from your soul. And we feel that. We know if somebody's biting, we know somebody is trying to, and it's okay to like experiment, but there's a difference with experimenting with your authentic voice than just trying to emulate something you've seen, heard, you know? So it's a feeling, and we could see it in other poets when you're authentically there. And even your nerves can't take that away.
Thank you, Roman. I think that's a good place to end. So Fabrice, thank you so much. Roman, thank you so much. Faith, thank you so much. Ken, Kim, and Shin, thank you for your questions, and those one or two we couldn't get to. But I want to say thank you to QWF as well for producing the event of Black Writers Out Loud. And there's going to be other events. This is the second, and there's going to be 2 more events on the web, and the links will be following. Just thank you. Write, share, take care of one another, and I enjoyed this as much as it was nerve-wracking for me to prepare and kind of get into it, but I think it was good. And thanks again to QWF and all our panelists, everyone watching, and I think that's it. Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was sweet.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.
Blessings, everyone.